my God. I'm a wimp. I would never make it past the state of Florida as far as warmth.
Funny.
Yeah, it always surprised me when I'd be down there and go to Macy's and stuff, and midwinter from Ohio down to there, and it was the same winter clothing in the department stores, the big down jackets and everything for the 50-degree days as opposed to the 10-degree days.
Funny.
Yeah.
Give people another minute here.
And Lori, you're an alumni, it sounds like, of this program. You're coming back.
Yes. Yeah. I never really left. I've just been distracted with a few other things. So yes, I'm putting some effort back into this. Yes. I think I was in your second mastermind.
Yeah.
Yes,
with Lindsay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, welcome, Dan. Glad you could join.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, guys.
Hello, Selena. Welcome. Glad you could join. And so while we let people join in, one of the things we might discuss real quick, Lindsay, I meant to mention this before we hopped on, but one of the things that's kind of blowing up right now in the news cycle is how we have one of the AI platforms getting sued over using AI in their recruiting, Eightfold. Have you read about this?
There's Workday is also being sued.
And Workday. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. And when I went for Eightfold, when I went and read how they described them using AI in their kind of like scoring, I was like, this is horrible, because it just spits out just a basic score of somebody and how they match the role that you're trying to hire for. It's not giving you insight into how they might match it. It's not doing what I like to encourage people to do is like sure, use your ATS thing to filter out candidates, but then have AI go through all those people that were filtered out and ask it like, hey, are there anybody that my ATS filtered out that might actually qualify for this? Should we still consider them? Because your ATS is going to filter out systematically by keywords. And if they maybe misspelled one of their skill sets, they're going to get filtered out and you're going to miss a really high quality candidate. And so it's like, man, why is Eightfold approaching it like this? There's so much better ways. There's such a better way to start using AI in your hiring practice where you actually reduce bias, don't miss candidates who are really well qualified. So anyways, that's my quick take.
Well, a random coin flip would also reduce bias. Well, unfortunately, there's too many people picking signals that are random or unfortunately have bias associated with those signals and getting themselves into trouble. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, right?
Yes.
Amen.
Well, I think there's so much pressure to find that efficiency that people just haven't determined the right way to use the AI tools yet. I think this is a good example of that.
There's 100 years of good selection science with industrial psychologists on how to validate and track and measure and make sure it's doing what it says it's supposed to be doing. So
and they haven't done
we're running pretty fast. Yeah.
Right.
But
They haven't done that work.
10 years ago, there was another firm that was using visual scoring of interviews to somehow guess at your personality based on your facial movements. And they also got in trouble for that. So just because you can do it.
Yes, it's crazy. Okay. So that's kind of our cold open there. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording and we're going to dive in. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Flower. I'm founder of Workplace Labs and one of the creators of the AI for HR mastermind. And we have some alumni on the call who have gone through our mastermind, which is great. And this is a 5-week program where we have 5 sessions. And what's so fun about it is that people come in asking, what am I going to build? What do I do with AI? What's the point? And a lot of them come out asking, what can I build next? And so I'm thrilled to have Lindsay joining us today, because she was one of our members who maybe was a little bit of an overachiever and built not just one AI assistant by the end of the course, but I don't know, how many was it, Lindsay?
I honestly don't
I'm going to
know.
say 5, you
It was,
know?
it was quite a few.
And yes, like she came into the course with a little bit more familiarity than some people. But what's beautiful about the course is that we have people who, like, I mean, they're starting at next to nothing. And by the end of it, they're able to, build an AI assistant that helps them in their work. So Lindsay, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more.
Yes, sorry. Are you able to admit people, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, good. I can hear the notification, but I can't do it while I'm sharing my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so let me restart here. Hello, everyone. I am Lindsay. Sorry, let me get this back up for you so I can focus. My background is in organizational strategy, learning and development, etc. And I think that because of that, I look at AI a little bit differently than a lot of tech folks do, which all of you in HR are in the same boat, right? Because I come from a non-technical background, I tend to get a little bit less lost in the complexity of the code, but more what the code can do for us. I am also pretty obsessed, to be honest, with AI ethics and how we can learn to build solutions that actually improve our minds and not make us cognitively lazy. My overall philosophy when it comes to AI is that we can build these solutions without losing our minds or ourselves. And I think that if we do it right, we can truly improve our own knowledge and decision making. So we're going to work through that today. I don't know. Okay, Jonathan, you want to go ahead and open us
Okay,
here?
so we wanted to just start this off with a little bit of discussion, and I'm curious, what are some of the roadblocks to employees using employee handbooks at your company?
There's still a lot of gray in between the black and white of the handbook. So it's important, your HR professionals that are providing guidance to employees, that they understand the black and white and how to apply that to the gray areas, which is everyday challenge with problems or advice or consultation that you're providing to managers and employees. Plus, the employees don't use it. They rely on their managers to know everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're just
So
always asking them
generally-
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generally, when an employee goes to the handbook, it only has one question, and about 50 or 100 pages to read. So that's the major roadblock. It never gets the straight answer that it needs.
And when they do look for the answer, a lot of times it's written in a very legal way, right? Because we use our as HR as a almost legal document with our employees so that they understand, or hopefully they understand what the expectations are of them.
Yeah, and following up on Andrea's comment, I think length, if you get a 40-page handbook, pre-onboarding or onboarding, in addition to just getting acclimated with the company, with your team, with your role, it's kind of overwhelming and it gets pushed to the back burner. And you just kind of never get around to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just building on it, I mean, someone joining new, you give a pages to read, no one would be interested. It will be overwhelming for them in terms of reading everything and getting to know how an organization behaves. I think it goes with, they rely a lot on the manager, to get things done, or a colleague who's sitting next to them to see how I can, make things easy for me, because reading pages together definitely would be one of the challenge what we have seen. Probably something with now AI being solution, I just type in a question, I get a quick text, say, this is what you need to do, and then you have a relevant links, it takes to the relevant pages. I think that's where we might, AI might help us in the future. Like, yeah, large language might help. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, and then so imagine with us for a minute, like what would change if some of these things weren't true and people were actually able to get what they needed from the handbook, without running into these issues? How would that affect you and your team?
I think one kind of surface level effect would be random staff wouldn't stop by our area, our cubes, and just, with a random question. But that's also fine. I think one thing that would be beneficial is if the handbook could be maybe digitized, maybe a little bit more interactive. I think especially for maybe people more familiar with, just technology, they could just open it up, let's say on, the weekend, and kind of just browse through it. And then if they have questions, they can just click a link and then ask a question like on a weekend if they're just waiting for something, the first week for work.
I think it would also build compliance within your internal policies and consistency in how policies are applied to different situations.
Anybody else?
Lindsay, I'm also thinking speed to productivity will be optimized for employees to be able to overcome that drinking from the fire hole period and shorten that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So this is definitely the goal that we're trying to solve for today, right? And we don't want to just build a chatbot. We want to change the dynamic from go find it yourself in this static document to here's the answer as fast as we can. And the best part is that when we use the tools like we're going to show you today, you don't have to wait 6 months or longer for IT or engineering to build it for you. We're going to build the whole thing out in about 45 minutes today. So what we're going to accomplish today is that we are going to build an AI assistant. It sounds complex, but we can kind of think of it in these 3 buckets. So first, we're going to build the interactive chat interface. This is the part where we're moving away from those static PDFs, and they can ask questions in natural language, just like they'd ask a colleague or you at your cubicle, rather than hunting through the PDF. The second is the knowledge base. This is going to be the most important part. So obviously we need to give the AI your handbook and your company's information to be able to accurately answer their questions. So we're going to structure the handbook in a way that AI can actually understand it rather than just uploading that PDF. And then third, we're going to set up the rules of engagement. So we want to make sure that the handbook is answering the questions in the tone that your company uses, matches your culture, and crucially avoids making anything up. So, and one of the reasons that we wanted to do this today is that we know that really anyone, but especially in HR, if you take a concept to leadership and ask for a budget to do something or ask IT and engineering to do something, a lot of times we just don't get the response that we would like. In this situation, we're going to give you a way to actually build a solution that you can then present to your leadership as a fully demoable product versus a concept. So instead of kind of saying, I need this and I want this, you're saying, don't just take my word, you can try it for yourself.
And to build on that idea a little bit more, one of the advantages of being able to, vibe code, if you will, be able to talk in natural language to these coding agents, is that they help you visualize your vision or visualize this concept. And so what we're demonstrating here today, this is a prototype. This is a proof of concept. This isn't going to be production ready in 45 minutes, but it's going to be good enough. It's going to be helpful, very incredibly valuable for you to use to show to other people to help them understand what you're trying to accomplish and maybe get them excited about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing I was going to mention is that we're not intending for you to like follow along in this workshop. We're going to go through things relatively quickly, and then you'll have the recording. It'll be available for free for 48 hours, and then paid mastermind members can access it. And so if you want to go through and kind of pause the video and follow along that way, that'll be good. And then we'll also share a guide, that PDF that you can download and follow some of the steps. But the most important thing, I think, is Lindsay's approach, kind of the framework and how she's approaching this tool. And this is going to translate to anything like Lovable. It's going to translate to Claude Code. It's going to translate to Jules in the Google world, Claude Code, things like that, Cursor. Okay, let's go ahead and do a little warning here before we go too far.
Yeah, so I mentioned before that I'm pretty obsessed with ethics, and I'm sure that your company is equally as obsessed with keeping proprietary information inside the walls of your organization. So just a couple of ground rules: don't ever upload any sort of personal information or sensitive information. So that could be your company's trade secrets. It could be, obviously we all know this in HR, but employee PII, no financial records, etc. You want to use public data from your website, or you could scrub stuff out of your actual content. You could also, what we're going to demo today is we're going to use a publicly available employee handbook. So you could use that to demo, but just be very aware of your company's AI policy and what is and is not allowed into a tool like Lovable outside the confines of your organization. And then the next piece is that vibe coding. We're going to use Lovable today. They're not great at security historically. Lovable is getting a lot better, but it is still an issue. So again, just be very careful about what is actually being put into your Lovable apps, because they're open to hackers. And so your question might be like, well, if I can't put my real stuff in it, why would I build this? I think I'd encourage you to think of Lovable as like a clickable pitch deck. Again, to the prototype idea, you're showing what's possible versus necessary, versus like showing an actual finished product. So you want to use this to show leadership how the interaction feels, and then you can prove your value at that point. Then you're able to hand this off to the team that could potentially build it inside of your actual firewall.
And the reason why this is so cool as an AI engineer, when somebody comes to me who has a lot of domain expertise and they've taken the time to build out some little proof of concept that shows me what they want and how they want it to work, and it has some of their domain expertise embedded into it, that's brilliant. That saves me potentially months of work or rework because I misunderstood their vision. Right. So doing this is such a huge help to being able to hand this off to IT or some engineer who will help you, who might be able to help you bring this to production.
Okay, any questions about the security or just being careful? Okay, perfect. So a quick level set on the tools that we're going to use today and kind of concepts we're going to use today. The first one is thinking about a custom GPT. So if you have been through the AI for HR Mastermind, you've all created at least one of these. But if you haven't, then you can think of a custom GPT as a chat GPT that has a specific job description. So you're taking the general knowledge of the LLM, of the AI that you're using, and narrowing it down by giving it specific documents and specific rules that it's going to run on. The second concept that we're going to talk about today is vibe coding. Vibe coding is a bit of a buzzword at this point, and it sounds trendy, but it's actually just a way to describe a shift in how we're building software. So vibe coding means that you're using natural language, just like you are in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. So just plain English to write code. So you don't need to actually know coding languages like Python or JavaScript. You are explaining what you want, almost like you would explain to an engineer, and then the software will actually translate that into code. So all you really need to be able to do is describe what you want the software to do and how you want it to feel. And so we are using Lovable for that today. Jonathan mentioned a couple of other tools. There's a lot out there right now. Lovable is one of the first to the scene. It's pretty intuitive and it's getting better literally by the day. And so we're going to use that. So for today, we're going to take the idea of a custom GPT and we're going to use vibe coding to put a body around it. Any questions on that? Cool. So our agenda is real quickly that we're going to plan what we want our tool to do. This is super important. We'll get into that in more depth. We're going to prepare the data that we want to upload into it. It's not like the most sexy part of building an AI app, but it's the most important part. And then we're going to build it. We're going to jump into vibe code and we'll actually build it out in real time. And then we'll test it and refine it. We'll try to break it. We'll see if we get the tone we want, etc. And then we'll talk about how you can actually translate this into an actual demo. So I know the temptation at this point would be to jump into Lovable and just start typing. And I admit that when I first used Lovable, I think it was about a year ago, I did exactly that. And I was so frustrated, like, I don't understand what the point of this is. If I just tell it to move this, it breaks the whole app. And I would actually kind of compare it to when I started using ChatGPT. At first, I was using it as Google and I was like, just use Google. Once you learn how to actually use it, it becomes infinitely more powerful. And so I want to just have us take a quick step back and talk about the planning before you go into Lovable, because it's going to save you hours of frustration. So the trap here is that AI tools like Lovable are really powerful, but they're also very literal. So if you think of AI as the world's fastest intern, but then that intern is Amelia Bedelia. Some of you might know Amelia Bedelia. She's a character in children's books here in the US. For those of you that don't know her, she's a very sweet, well-meaning lady, but she takes everything extremely literally. So if her boss here told her to draw the drapes, which is a colloquialism for opening the drapes, she didn't open the curtains. She actually got out a sketch pad and literally drew a picture of the drapes. And so what she did is she did exactly what was said, but not what was meant. AI is exactly the same. If you go in and just type, make me a handbook app, the AI will guess, and it'll be well-meaning like Amelia Bedelia, but it's going to guess wrong. And so before we write the code, we need to do what Amelia's boss should have done and give very clear, unmistakable directions. So before we even write the first thing in Lovable, we need to plan for that. So this is the planning framework that I've been using. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but I have found that it helps a lot. And as Jonathan mentioned, we have a leave behind for you so that will actually walk you through exactly how to get to this point. So don't feel like you have to like rush to write all of this down. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define the problem. We want to be very specific about the pain points that we're trying to solve for and very concrete. The second thing we're going to do is identify the user. Who is going to be the person that's using this tool? When are they going to use it? And any other context, like how might they be feeling when they're going to use it? What's the one main thing that you want your assistant to do, especially when you're starting out vibe coding? Focusing on one thing will increase your potential for success greatly. Trying to pack 50 different features into a vibe coding app from the start, invariably it just can't do it properly. So think through what the one main thing is that you want them to be able to do while using your assistant. And then the last thing is think about what you don't want it to do. What is out of scope? And we'll talk about what that looks like. So if we answer these questions before we even open Lovable, it'll build the AI, or it'll build the app correctly the first time. If you skip them, you and AI Amelia might be in for a long road. So we can see here that a vague prompt is something like, build me a chatbot for our employee handbook. That's Amelia. A good prompt would be create a chat interface where new hires can ask questions about company culture, policies, and processes. The assistant should respond in a warm, helpful tone, cite specific handbook sections, and admit when it doesn't know something. Everybody see the difference between those, how very specific that is.
And one thing I want to open your mind to, if you want to go back for a second, Lindsay, is that these are questions that you can phrase to AI, whatever your favorite AI chat application is. It's like, hey, I want to create this interface. Like, help me define the problem. Help me identify the users. Help me describe the main action. And it will help you define this good prompt. And your prompt that you're going to take and paste into Lovable might end up being quite a bit longer than what we're showing here. And that's great.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Jonathan, Lindsay?
Please.
In terms of the different tools, I'm curious from your experience, let's say, for example, Cloud, Gemini, ChatGPT, right? And I'm sure, I know there are others. In terms of prompting, do you have a particular one you feel like that one really is good to help create really good
the prompts?
Yeah.
Yes, I prefer Claude's models for when I'm writing prompts. Opus and Sonnet are really good at helping me craft good prompts. And one of the things I'll mention is, like, if I tell it to be a prompt engineer, I find it actually writes worse prompts. And so if you give it a lot of context of what you're trying to build, and then ask it to give you like system instructions, or, hey, help me format this into instructions that I'm going to give to Lovable or Claude Code, another AI assistant, then it does a really good job of putting that together and making it ready to copy and paste over.
I actually have a prompt that I can share with you all that I use in Claude. You could use it in any of them that I have found generates excellent prompts. So if you just send me a message on LinkedIn, I'll send you that prompt.
One of the things that I always like to say and encourage people with is that the tools don't matter as much. The model doesn't matter as much. If you take this approach of building all this context in a really good prompt, you can do this with any of the models, and the results will be drastically better. I don't care what model you're using. It's the approach that matters the most.
Agreed. And I find myself flip-flopping between them all. And sometimes I'll even take, if I ask something to generate a prompt, I'll take it to another model and put it in and see what happens. And then if it's not doing what I want it to do, I'll ask it like, well, how would you improve this prompt? So I tend to use the different models as almost like different coworkers and to get their perspective on things.
Okay,
Any other questions?
my
Okay,
pleasure.
cool.
All right,
Oopsies.
let's keep going. We gotta
Yes. Okay.
get to the demo part. Yeah.
We are moving too slow. All right. So we're going to take this specific handbook, and I've already filled out our assistant here. So you can see here that I've articulated a very clear problem. I didn't just say that people have questions. I said that new hires are wasting their time and is creating bottlenecks for HR. In the user, we didn't just say employees. We said employees in their first 90 days who are overwhelmed. In the main action, we gave it exactly what we want it to do. And in the boundaries, we're saying, I do not want you to give legal advice. I don't want you to speculate about policies not in the handbook. Don't discuss individual employee situations, and acknowledge when it doesn't know something. So our prompt here for Lovable is, I'm building an assistant that solves the problem of new hires getting lost in our employee handbook, blah, blah, blah. So you can see that. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and go over to Lovable, and we're just going to drop that in here. And then a tip I would give you at this point is, oh, we have a spelling error, whatever, is to hit plan here. So if you hit plan, one of the things I add to almost all of my prompts in this type of situation is ask any questions that you have to properly plan this project. If we do that, Lovable will actually think through what you're asking of it and ask more questions so that it can build the back end and the front end to your specifications. So here it's going to think about this and respond to us. And while it's thinking about that, let's take a look at the Valve handbook that we're going to use. So this is the handbook. You can see it is, there's pictures.
And Valve is a company that they create computer games and console games. And so the handbook's kind of fun. It has some personality.
Awesome. And this is their 2012 edition, but they take their employees, all of them, on a week-long tropical vacation every year, which is pretty crazy.
Hey, Lindsay, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you are starting at this point, have you already uploaded the PDF, or it's just cold, like just very
Yeah, it's so
no background, no back information that you're looking
yeah,
at?
so far we've only given it this prompt. And then here you'll see that it's going to ask us questions. So we're going to say we want open access. We're going to say, I'm going to say I'll provide the aesthetic or Valve in another chat. We're going to say that we're going to do we'll go ahead and do that. Who are you building this for? Now, see, that's interesting because we already told it that. And then, so now it's just reviewing those questions and we're going to hit submit. So then again, what that's doing on the code side is figuring out how does it need to structure the back end to be able to provide what you need it to provide. And then it's going to ask a couple more questions. So we'll do.
And one of the things that you can do if you're not sure about how to answer some of these questions is you could just copy the questions, paste them into your favorite chat app and ask it like, hey, which one should I pick? Help me decide. What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, what does this mean? I've had to ask that before.
Mm-hmm. Treat me like I don't know anything about coding, things like that, and it'll help you.
So then here's the plan that it's come up with. you would review that. We're in a hurry, so we're going to just go ahead and hit approve. And while it will take a minute to actually build it. So while it's building it, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to prep for the next phase. So that's what we just did. All right. So the next phase is the knowledge problem. So Jonathan's going to walk you through this, but just so you have a visual, this is what the handbook looks like as in its raw form. If we just uploaded this to Lovable, it would have a really hard time finding the information that it needs. So we need to move it into a format that the AI can actually access quickly. So Jonathan, you want to go ahead and through.
So what happens when we just take a document like this and upload it is there's some elements in that PDF that are either not relevant, or the way that the model parses that PDF, it'll just have some of the information just flat wrong or out of context is another issue. The way that the AI model will read this document is it will actually just grab chunks of text that are relevant to a question that you might have asked it. And sometimes that chunk might miss a critical piece of context that's right above that chunk of text. And so the best thing that you can do is streamline what all is included in the knowledge base. So you're going to take that handbook and you're going to just remove things that are not relevant. Maybe there's some extra pages in there that you don't really need people to be able to ask questions about. That's the most valuable thing. Then the next step is we can actually use AI to process it and basically not summarize it, but just kind of compress it down and remove some of the little extras and things so that it's more condensed for the AI model. So again, we have a guide that can kind of walk you through this and show you how to do that. And we'll share that at the end. We've gone through that process where we've run it through this and converted it to a document that's ready for AI to search for. It's been optimized. And then we also generated a table of contents. And the reason that we did that is because we're going to take that table of contents and we're going to put it into the system prompt, right? Because we want the AI model to know, basically have some knowledge of what it has access to in the handbook. What types of questions can it answer with the handbook? And that's going to help it access the knowledge.
Perfect. Do you want to go through a little bit of how you can do that with the good, better, best?
So the way that I've broken it down is, basically good is something that somebody who's not very technical can go through this process and do this. And what that looks like is splitting the document, taking that PDF, and you're actually going to create more PDFs where it's just 10 pages at a time. And then when you paste that into your AI chat application like ChatGPT, it can process and enhance those pages. And I have a prompt specifically for you to give it to process those 10 pages. And the reason that we're only doing 10 pages at a time is because things like ChatGPT are optimized to be conversational. And so if you do more than 10 pages at a time, it's just not going to respond with the level of detail that we want. We want it to have a lot of detail. So if it's a 30-page document, we're going to do that 3 times. Here's 10 pages, get it back, copy, paste that off to a Word document, do it again. And for the second time, all you need to do is just upload the next 10 pages. And the AI assistant already knows what it's doing, right? So you just tell it, hey, continue. Here's the next 10 pages. And it'll process it for you. So then when we get into better, that's talking about like using APIs. And there's other services that do a better job of extracting the content from the PDFs. And both of these, at least for ChatGPT and this one I'm recommending, Mistral OCR, both of those will actually read the images in the PDFs. This hasn't been true, until somewhat recently. For a while there, they struggled to actually read the text of the images, and now they've gotten pretty good at it. And then the best one, I go through some like enterprise level approaches for doing this that you might share with your IT team. I just link out to some of the cutting edge approaches that people are using at that level. Okay, that's my
Perfect.
spiel on the data prep.
So when you get those outputs, it'll look like this when it comes back from Markdown, right? And so what I did was I copied and pasted it into a document, and then I just went to, and Google Docs does, I don't know if Word does this, but Google Docs does download and then Markdown file.
Yes, and you can use Markdown files or Word documents. If you want to be in the better, best, kind of scenarios, Markdown is preferable. But what's more important than having Markdown is having it in a format that you can review and you're comfortable with. So if you're having a hard time reading the Markdown, that's not helpful. And so there's some skills there involved that you need to make that workable or easy. And so don't get bogged down in that. Just do Word documents. It's fine.
Yeah, and in your initial prompt, you'll want to tell it how you're going to provide that information.
Is
So if
Markdown
you,
a Google document, you said, or?
Google
I
Docs
miss
is compatible with Markdown, is how I would say, but Markdown is just a standard. It's like
Okay.
similar to a Word document or a
Gotcha.
rich text document.
and it
It's
has a
similar
specific
to that.
format, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen here is that AI or Lovable actually now has AI integrated into the app, which is really cool. So you don't even have to worry about an API. It's pretty cheap. I've made several apps using it and haven't had any problem with going over what they supply you. And so, but you do have to allow it every time. So it's going to go ahead and set that up now. And then we should be getting closer.
And this is one of the reasons I like Lovable, is because they've built out some things in their AI, their assistant, that makes things like this that are typically fairly complicated. They've built out specific scenarios and made them really easy for people who are not developers.
And if you're ever curious just what's happening, it'll tell you what it's doing. So now it's going to create the database schema. It's going to build the chat interface. It's going to build the password protected admin panel. Although I don't know why it's doing that. And then create an AI chat edge function. An edge function just means that's how it's going to ask the AI the questions. And that's where your system prompt will end up going. Okay, we'll let that work and we'll go on to our next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do once that's all set up is we're going to go ahead and add the brain. So we're using Lovable's AI, so we don't need to do an API or anything. That's what we just did. We're going to upload that knowledge base, that Markdown file that we just looked at. Again, as Jonathan said, it doesn't have to be Markdown. That's what we're using today. And then we're going to set the system prompt. So this is the system prompt we're going to start with. As with any GPT situation, this prompt worked great when I was doing a practice run yesterday. It might not work as great today on this one. And so you'll just chat with your Lovable to make it do and act and behave and sound the way that you want it to, and it will automatically update this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. We're still working over here.
live demos are always a little bit of a gamble.
It does take, I have found that when we're this specific on the front side, it takes a little while. It obviously takes longer for it to actually set up what you see first than if you said, show me the homepage first. But the whole rest of the process is so much easier and faster.
You want to go ahead and talk a little bit about making refinements?
Yeah, sure. So once this is all done, we will go ahead and start testing it. So we're going to look at what it's produced, and we're going to say, these are the things that I like, and these are the things that I don't like. You want to be same thing along the Amelia Bedelia lines. You want to be very, very specific about what you want to change, and then crucially what you don't want to change. And also, if you are building an app that has multiple pages and you want that change to apply to all the pages, you need to tell it that you want it to apply to all the pages. Otherwise, it will only apply to the page that you're looking at. And then the other thing that I would say is you want to batch your changes. So if you put in 2 to 3 changes into a single prompt, as long as they're not super complex changes, it will take time and reduce errors. One thing to know about a tool like Lovable is that you have a certain amount of credits. So your interaction with it is not infinite. So you want to be smart about planning ahead about what you want everything to look like, and then smart when you're asking it to change things and do things to try to limit the number of tokens that you're using so that you have enough to get to the end of your project. And so we'll test that out here in a minute.
And where you'll find that you'll start to run into limits is if it does start to have errors. A good approach is just to try to break that thing down, whatever feature it is that you're trying to get it to build or bug you're trying to fix, like break it down into smaller chunks. And in Lovable, like you can go back, like don't feel like you can't like reset what it's built so far, because sometimes it's easier to reset than it is to have it fix something that it got wrong. There's something to be aware of, because it's kind of peculiar how sometimes it has a really hard time going in a different direction after it's gone one direction. And it's easier to it has a feature where you can reset back and just refine your prompt so that you have clearer instructions, and then it'll go to town.
If you hit view history, you'll notice as we look at the chat, it will put these little like ribbon things, and that's where you can go back and go back to. So we haven't made any changes yet, so there's nothing to go back to yet. But
and to give you a mindset when you're talking to it, because I think it's hard sometimes when you're talking to a tool like this to know what to say or what feedback to give it. And so I encourage you to just imagine this as some junior programmer intern you just hired. And if they do something wrong, like what would you tell them? Or if they didn't get it exactly right, what would you tell them? Feel free to have dialogue and give them feedback.
And while this is uploading, I'll give you a little bit of a tour of the rest of this screen. So the preview screen is obviously you're looking at the preview of your app. The cloud is going to have an overview of everything. So here you can see in our database, we have our handbook that's been uploaded. There is SQL editor, but you probably won't use that. Any users that log in, there's some storage. You won't use most of this, but just so you know where it is, that's all here. And then the design, you can make visual edits. I will say that I feel like this still has a long way to go on working well, but you can make visual edits and select things and move them around. And sometimes you can change the text and sometimes it's not so easy. That's the part that I feel like could be better.
Mhm.
And then here you can see the actual code. So if you are at all familiar with how a site is set up, or if you want to learn, you can click through here and it gives you a good idea of where everything is and how it's working. If you don't want or care, you never have to look at that. And then there's some analytics that are sometimes built in, but we aren't going to do that today. All right, so it says done. The handbook content is now in your database ready to use. Try asking it a question. So it'll answer the question now. But it's probably going to be pretty, oh, well, that's not good.
So this is
Cool.
where we're getting into making refinements, and we're going to treat it just like, you know, an intern developer and tell it what we're running into, what we're seeing that's not matching what we expect. And it's going to go and it's going to try to break this down and see if it can figure out what's going on.
Maybe it's referred to as PTO.
It is, but I'm pretty sure that
Oh.
it has vacation in
Should
there.
be
as
able
well.
to translate that, yeah.
Yeah, and the AI should be able to translate that for sure. And because, okay, let's log in. Focus on vacation policies. That's not true. However, there is vacation policy. I may have trimmed. Why did you trim anything?
It's trying to be a helpful assistant, and it probably maybe it summarized the handbook.
So to that point, Jonathan and Lindsay, let's say to what extent does it do a really solid job in terms of verifying information, make sure it's accurate? Or do you recommend, say, for example, manually we spot check for key information such as like stock option information? How much are you supposed to get if you are having whatever, right? Those are pretty critical. We don't want people to get wrong information. So what do you suggest is the best practice?
Why don't we switch to the backup demo, Lindsay?
Yeah. So what
'Cause
is going on?
we could figure this out.
Yeah. Okay. So
So-
here I made.
So for that, Selena, the when you want it to have really good, accurate feedback, there's two approaches that I like to help people with. One is having the expectation. And so this is not, it's not going to give you definitive answers 100% of the time. And so this is part of the change management involved with rolling out a generative AI based tool rather than a more conventional piece of software. And if people have that expectation that, hey, sometimes it's going to lead me the wrong way, that actually makes it more useful, right? Because we can have the model when we design the generative AI tool, we can have it, hey, make sure you're including citations. And if the user has this expectation, hey, sometimes it's going to lead me the wrong way, or it's not going to give something 100% correct all the time, they're going to click on that citation or that link, and the AI, we can have it go ahead and bring up that section of the article or the knowledge that we've been uploaded, and they can verify it that way. Then it's 100%. And what the AI has done is it's not so much that it's providing the answer 100% correct. It's just made it, 10 times faster for you to find the answer and verify it.
Yeah. And I would also say evaluations are really important. So try to break it. Jonathan and Neil taught me, it's called red teaming. Ask it crazy things and see what happens. And that will give you a roadmap for how to refine it further. Ask it all of the questions that you think that a new hire might ask. So anything that you're particularly concerned about, make sure that you're asking it and seeing what it's going to generate. And if you like it, great. If you don't, then you can tell Lovable, I don't like the way that it answered this, and it will help you figure out how to fix it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so here, this is what's really fascinating about this, and I think is actually an interesting thing to happen during a live demo. I followed the exact same process building this last night that we just followed. So it just goes to show that anything AI is not standard. It's going to produce different results every time. And that it just means that you need to know how to keep prompting it to get closer and closer to what you actually want. So here we can see that it said that it actually gave us an answer. It's in the right tone, etc. I obviously already gave it the system prompt, but that we looked at, but I can show you that it's right here in the actual code. So that's where that system prompt that we were looking at on our slide ends up living. And so then we can ask it, I wanted to test it on this one. Oh, yeah, see? So that would be a break. So it is actually in the glossary, but it's correct that it is a creative space where people meet up. So then it says, well, I don't actually know. So you can either ask a coworker nearby, or you can email this email to see if they can point you in the right direction. So if I was emailing this, I would then do a little bit of digging to find out why it didn't understand to pull that up, right? Another thing that I tested yesterday was there's in the like the jargon section, it says like 14-year-old boy, and it makes fun of somebody that's one of the employees there saying they look like a 14-year-old boy. And I was like, oh no, a 14-year-old boy is running around. Is that even legal? And it was like, no, it's not. Or actually it gave a couple, it was like, it might be a family member. It might be, you'll see this on our week-long vacations. And if you're concerned, you should reach out to HR. So it gave a decent response, but it wasn't the response that the actual handbook would have given. So I would have done more digging on that. So I think my thought process here is the planning and the evals are where you're going to get this to the place that you want it to go. And evaluations just means that you're testing it and then changing it to act how you want it to. And then we already talked about how you can refine any of the other things. You can, how I got these colors to match Valve's website was I just took screenshots of their website and uploaded them and asked it to make the UI match their website. Okay, we are running out of time. So
yeah, we just have a few minutes. And so, you know, that was like the process that, and the prompts that Lindsay used, you know, it didn't work for this live demo, but those are the same prompts that we've used in the past, and it worked. And so that was it actually working. And so that, again, the idea here is to use something like this to help you demonstrate, prototype, help communicate your vision. I've even run across somebody who was just using it to like help visualize a workflow that they were trying to collaborate on. Things like that. This is a really powerful approach. And you want to go ahead and just show the QR codes so that they can grab.
Yes, I was trying to.
The guides.
Before we go to the QR codes, I would just encourage you to think of any part of your day that feels like Groundhog Day, where you're answering the same questions over and over again, and use that as your test case when you're building your first one. Okay, and then here are the QR codes. Here you can learn more about the AI Mastermind. And Jonathan, does this take them to the
AI4HRmastermind.com website. And then the one on the right takes them to the
This one.
guide,
This one.
that one. And then at the bottom of that, it has a link to this one.
Got it. Okay. Where did I lose my? Oh, here we go. All right.
Everybody's
So-
holding up their cameras. You got to scroll up a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So there it is. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for sharing this approach. This is brilliant. Lindsay and I are happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions that you might have. And other than that, hope to see you in the workshop next month. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stick around just for a
Yeah.
minute if you can.
Yeah.
Lindsay, have you been able to implement this in your current, just wondering, like, once you get through all the prompts, you've done your initial kind of breaking the system,
Mhm.
and what level of effort it took to get this approved through legal,
Great
in
question.
product level?
Yeah, great question. I am actually on my own now, so I am not with an organization anymore. But when I was, poor Jonathan got many messages late at night, like, I cannot stand this. These tools were not as advanced. Like, the amount of improvement that I've seen in these tools in the last 6 to 8 months is vast. And so I was creating an onboarding buddy situation that would answer handbook questions, policy questions, benefits questions. What should I be doing today? Because we had a very structured 2-week onboarding process. And it did work on the Chat GPT side. So I was in the API side of Chat GPT, and all of the testing worked there. Unfortunately, Slack did not want, there was no easy way for me to get that into Slack, which is what we use for our communication. And the number of hours I spent trying to solve this problem, insane. I don't know if that's gotten any better with Slack. I think Slack actually has its own AI situation now. So I can't give a lot of guidance on that, but the actual setting it up was this same process and super easy. So it was more getting it implemented and launched in a way that made sense for our employees, that I didn't have a method for that at the time. And then towards the end of my tenure there, I was working with the chief technology officer on like the AI architecture for all of our company resources. But that was going to be housed inside our, there's a proprietary platform that they have. So that was a lot easier because we weren't trying to connect to another program.
Okay.
You could also make it a web app and just have it in a situation, as long as it's secure, that they can just keep as a pin on their dashboard. Yeah, I was just being a real stickler about getting it on Slack because that is where all of our communication happened, and I wanted it to be seamless. And I'm like a dog with a bone. When there's a problem I feel like I can't solve. So I was being really stubborn about it. But yeah, it's not complicated. Legal didn't have we didn't have in-house legal, but my HR and my CEO, who was my boss, had no concerns because we were using the enterprise API, and it escalated in the same way. Like, always feel free to reach out to Lindsay if you have any questions.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that's I think Jonathan said this earlier, part of implementing AI is going to be teaching people to make good decisions about the output that it's getting and not follow it blindly, but like, okay, yes, this makes sense, or that doesn't seem right, and then go talk to someone.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you could put a disclaimer on it, right? Like these are AI generated responses. We believe that they will be generally correct, but if something seems off, please escalate it to XYZ. So that if you put in there's a 14-year-old boy running around, and it was like, yeah, that we hire minors, obviously escalate. But that's part of the red teaming, right? Like that's part of going in and trying to break it before you launch it.
Yeah. Because I can definitely see, and hopefully this wouldn't happen, but an employee accepting a response from chat and it's not correct, but they don't know enough to say that's not correct.
Yeah.
And they do whatever that is. You know where I'm going with that. Like, it's like, well, AI chat said that was the right process. So that's what I did. And here's my screenshot. And like, just wondering how you stay out of that.
Yeah, I would definitely, especially we were a smaller organization. In a large organization, I would definitely work with your legal team on that. And then, like I said, just red team it. Like, and you can have other people try too. Like, go see if you can get wrong answers from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do to improve that experience. You know, doing the red teaming, giving it specific instructions like, hey, when somebody asks about this, respond with this. You know, hey, I can't help you with that, but call, send a message to Lori. Things like that help it become safer. But it's not going to get 100%. And that gets back to this expectation thing. And where a lot of companies get stuck is they're trying to get it to 100% because they want to be able to trust it. Like they can trust software that they've deployed internally before in the past. And they get stuck. They get stuck in that pilot stage. And they never make it out.
Right. It's not obviously humans aren't always 100% accurate. So which way are you going to trade it?
Right. It shouldn't be a roadblock.
80% of it correctly, and you're good to go. I guess that's why it's so important that you have that human touch monitoring some of the responses, because if you see a trend with responses not coming out correctly, you got to jump in there and fix it.
As you're building it, you can have it so that you can see what questions are being asked and what the answers are. You can make it so it's anonymous, so you can't see who's asking them or whatever. But then you could do a weekly look down and say, like, is this going the way that I want it to go? If not, what do I need to change? And I'm sure you could even set up a report to run in GPT or whatever. To audit that, right? So there are definitely ways to get there, I would say.
Yes. Can we help you with anything, Andrea?
Yes, I was wondering how is this different from a custom GPT?
Good question. So this is very similar in some respects to a custom GPT. The advantage of building this out in Lovable is that there's more things that we can build in Lovable, for one thing. And then the other thing is that it makes it more, it makes it more demoable. And it gives, so for me as an engineer, and I would imagine your IT department to some extent is like, oh, HR doesn't need to be involved in our, AI agent deployments. But if you are able to demonstrate something like this, I think they might listen. And that's important because so much of what IT is trying to do is they're too focused on the technology. And if you're able to demonstrate something like this, you have something that you can demonstrate. Hey, it's not just about the technology. It has a lot to do with your approach and how you talk to it. Look at what I was able to build. And then maybe they'll involve you in some of how they're rolling out AI, and it's going to be way more successful.
And you can, like a custom GPT just looks like Chat GPT to the user. This is just a nicer experience for the user.
Okay. So I'm thinking, for example, considering Europe, my reality. So they all are bound to Microsoft Copilot, and they're really here. So I guess whenever I think of this kind of product, I always think I will go, because they are so bound to Microsoft, I will just build an agent in Microsoft that does that. Because it's the only way, because security, you know, here in Europe, security and stuff, it's way above.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, so I'm trying to imagine if I go with something like this, and just I'm just trying to see what are the advantages regarding this, or for example, if I just build an assistant, not an assistant, an agent in Copilot, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I think either one works. Like, it's not going to be wrong. And then one of the ways to just open your mind to the possibility is if you demonstrate something that you built out in Lovable, you know, maybe you were able to create some mock data or something so that you can demonstrate the concept without having any sensitive information in it. Then there's actually a way that you can download the code from that, and your IT department, if they're familiar, they can relatively easily deploy this as an internal tool on your intranet.
Okay.
That's an
That's
option.
okay. Because that's the main issue here. They will never, I can never go with a product for a client like this. Never. They will always say, but we want not public, always internal, always in a safeguards. So that's a very interesting approach. So I can just
Yes.
download the code and give it so they can deploy it internally.
Yes, absolutely. And they can connect it to the Microsoft Copilot API endpoints so that it's
Okay.
using your approved AI, and it's completely, you know, hosted inside of your private cloud infrastructure.
Okay. Great. Do you know where I can find more information regarding that?
Yeah, that's interesting. So as in, maybe I'll shoot, I can shoot you like a follow-up email or something, because
Okay, that will be great.
basically it has the ability to connect to something called GitHub, which is a Git repo. But Lori, Andrea, do y'all know what GitHub is?
I know what GitHub has. I have an account.
Okay.
So you
Awesome.
can export it to your GitHub.
Yeah, but I can never do that for a client over here.
No, then you can give it to, you can give that code from GitHub to your IT department.
Oh, okay.
Out of
Mhm.
So
Lovable.
from Lovable, from GitHub to there. Okay, understood.
Yes. And then yeah, I can point to and I can point you to some articles and things that your IT team might be able to reference and be like, oh, this is how we would deploy it really easily and connect it to our internal AI.
Okay, great. That will be
Azure.
wonderful, because the companies that I'm working for, their IT is also pretty basic. So their IT is not like implementing code, it's just plugging computers, you know? That's the
Yes.
level that I'm working with. So
Good luck. You get to learn a new skill.
yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's
okay.
really interesting. I would, because the tooling for doing this and deploying it has gotten a lot easier. But yeah, if it's an IT team that's just like plugging in computers and setting up computers, I don't know what they would think about something like this. It'd be
I
interesting.
don't know. I wanted to share what I came up with through Lovable, because I did Andrea, this may help you to visualize the power of Lovable. I mean, just to help you provide that concept. Do you mind if I share my screen just
Please
to show
do.
you? And let's see if I can figure this out.
I am still streaming. I can stop it if you'd prefer. Here, I'm going to go ahead and stop it. Bye,
Okay.
everyone on the stream.